Oh, that's when the Beatles came out. So
Right.
1964, the Beatles. So I became a huge Beatles fan. Still am a huge Beatles fan.
Do you remember the first time you listened to the Beatles?
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember when they first came out, and everybody's running around going, "Did you see the Beatles? Man, their hair touches their ears." It was something.
Really,
It
because
was
that was considered long.
that was long then. Yeah, and boy, did we change from that. But it was, and I went to see the Beatles. I saw them in concert at Shea Stadium in
What
1966.
what year were the Beatles came to America?
1964.
1964.
So 1966 was their last tour, and I saw them at Shea Stadium for my birthday.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
my,
You're the only person I know that has gone to a Beatles concert.
yeah. My brother and I went to see them together.
Wow.
Yeah.
How was how was America when the Beatles were here? I mean, they were the biggest band in the world.
Oh, it was incredible. What a craze, at that time. And then of course that started the British invasion. You had the Stones, and all the other groups, the Herman's Hermits and Freddie and the Dreamers and all these other acts that started coming over from
I always
England.
wondered before the Beatles were big, what were teenagers listening to? What was in? What was
Well, I was still I was getting into my teens because I was 52, so I was only 12 years
12
old when
years
the
old,
Beatles
right,
came.
right, right.
So,
So that was your first experience into music as
I was really getting into it then. I think I was into a little of Elvis before then, but I think that was really my big introduction to music. So I became a huge fan of rock and roll, which I think I still was listening to a little bit before then. But once the Beatles hit, Beatles and Stones, I was hooked.
The Beatles went to the Ed Sullivan show, right?
Right.
That you described in your Facebook page that you saw in your house.
Yes, every Sunday night we'd all gather in the living room and watch the Ed Sullivan Show.
Wow.
And the Beatles were on, the Stones were on, and all the others that came over from England at that time. He always had them on. It
So
was
you
great.
said that the Beatles started this big influence in music from England. They started coming to America.
Right. Yeah. So, like I say, them, then the Stones, and all these other groups, but none as big as the Stones or the Beatles.
So you will say that American rock, became influenced very heavily by these bands that came from.
I think so. Yeah. And even today, you'll hear people talk about how the Beatles influenced so many
course.
different acts because there was nothing. It was different, and then especially as they started getting. Started going through the years, their music started changing, and it was stuff that you'd never heard before. Like Sgt. Pepper's, Magical
Right,
Mystery Tour.
What did you feel when the Sgt. Pepper came out and it was very different
It
from
was
what?
very different, but it was so good. And to this day, I still love. I can listen to. I have Sirius Radio, and I can listen to the Beatles. They have a Beatles channel now, and I was so happy when I heard that they were doing that. I can literally listen to the Beatles channel every single day and never get tired of it. Even though I'm hearing some of the same songs over and over again, it's still great.
What do you think was so different about the Beatles that connected so well with people?
I don't know. I think it was maybe because it was so new.
Mm.
But their harmonies were great. And it was just, I don't know.
Right.
It just stuck with me.
But
And
it has connected through generations, right? Like
yeah,
I discovered the Beatles in my 30s, and I love the Beatles.
yeah. My one of my daughters loves the Beatles.
Right.
She anytime the Beatles come. Although the other day she was in my car and she took my car somewhere. She goes, "Dad, is that all you listen to? Just the Beatles? Don't you get tired of it?" No, I don't. I really don't.
Uh-huh.